The time has come. Our friend and colleague, our hero, Jonathan Capehart's, his new book is out. Yet Here I Am, Lessons from a Black Man Search for Home. It is fabulous. I have read it multiple times at this point. He recounts stories from his life about embracing identity, picking battles, seizing opportunity, and finding his voice. I want to
This
read.
is weird.
This is, I know. This is, yeah, we'll get I want to read something from the book that has stuck with me and I just can't get it out of my head. Rita, he said his pretty cousin Rita, that's what he calls her in the book. Rita and I were not yet aware that we were enjoying our freedom as the first generation in our family to never have to pick cotton. Slaves bent their backs to pick it. Even after the Civil War that freed them, generations of their descendants, our parents, aunts, uncles, and distant cousins continued their work for a pittance. Because of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, enacted exactly 3 years to the day before I was born, the duty stopped with Joe Nathan's and Isla Mae's grandchildren. And I mean,
so I wanted to put that in historical context to remind people that this country has only been free for slightly longer than 50 years. Yeah. I'm 57. And so,
you don't look it.
Well, thank you. But when we were running around in the yard in North Carolina, as I was writing this book, I realized, wait, Rita and I, well, the first generation in our family that didn't have to pick cotton, but also we were among the first generation to truly live free in America, de jure freedom. The words in the Constitution officially applied to us. And so by framing it that way, I wanted people to understand that freedom in America is brand new. And the old ways of America are still in the memories of people who are still with us, and they aren't that old.
I was lucky enough to get an early copy from you. I actually begged you for one. I was on I harassed him for it and got it. And then I was on a flight, and I realized I had read through 10 chapters without stopping. It was a longer flight out to LA. And it was so engaging. And the first part of the book, especially where you do talk about the South and going down with your grandmother, and you talk about how she was a Jehovah's Witness, and witnessing, as they call it in the South, is a big thing, to go around and to tell everyone about Jehovah, the Lord, the Savior, and so you would go with her. And so talk about what you learned and what an impact it made on your life, those experiences.
Yeah, those experiences were the first stories I wrote down in 2017. They had been in my head basically since I was a kid. Grandma being a Jehovah's Witness, going witnessing with my grandmother, which is down south, which is completely different than the way it's done up north. You can see my grandma coming in her car. And, you know, you go into these homes, almost always African Americans. And I remember seeing the three portraits that I started calling the Holy Black Trinity, Kennedy, King, and Christ. And sometimes there was RFK on the wall. And just the smell of the homes, the look of toil on the faces. I remember, and as I put it down, and that is where, in those visits, where I formed the way I look at race, the way I look at my country, was formed during those encounters.
In this book, as people have been buying it and reading, and as you've been going around, what are the lessons you hoped to share with people? What are the things you wanted people to leave?
So that's the other reason why I wanted to put my story down, is that I've learned a lot in my life, and I wanted to share the lessons that I learned because I want people who might not be Black, might not be LGBTQ, but maybe we have had the same experiences, and so here's what I've learned, and maybe it will help you. The number one lesson being, when someone asks you what you want, tell them. I had someone tell me that they would always underplay what they wanted in the hopes that maybe they would rise. And I was like, no, absolutely. Tell them what you want. And that's what I did. Someone asks me what I want, I tell them. And that's how I got my internship at the Today Show. That's how I got my job at Bloomberg News as a columnist. I didn't want to work there. And he said, well, what do you want to do? I told him, and he said, well, why can't you do that here? The other one is, go where your talents are wanted. A lot of people sometimes are in places where they're busting their asses, they're doing really good work, but they're not getting the recognition. But someone over there is saying, hey, come over here and do this. Hey, come over here and do that. And that's what I ended up doing, moderating panels around the world, hosting radio shows. And then the other thing, the final lesson is everything we do in life is an audition for something else. We just don't know what yet. And because I was doing what seemed to be all these disparate things, they ended up forming the template that makes it possible for me to sit here right now.
It was inspiring. It made me think I got to go out there and apply some of Jonathan's wisdom. But it really was a beautiful book, and you write so well, and it's so engaging. And for MSNBC viewers, there also is a cameo from our favorite Reverend Al Sharpton, too.
Yes, there are a couple. There's a great story about me, Reverend Sharpton, Reverend Jackson, which is how I met Reverend Sharpton, and a suit. Everyone's heard about the box, but no one's talked about. No one's
but
talking
you got to
about
buy the book. You got to buy the book to read that story, right?
Right. Yes, you do.